the capacity, because we have the ability to translate experiences into language. We have a problem. We have a bigger problem.
Yes. Why does death not prevent most of the people in this room from believing in God?
Why? Say again.
From being atheists. Why is death not preventing most of the people in this room from being atheists? You say religion is why people believe in. Death is why people believe in God. We don't believe in God, but we don't. But we're going to die anyway. We're atheists. Why should we?
Well, no, but you have found. Obviously, all of you in this room have found a way to think about this. You have found a way to accommodate the anxiety in the ways that all of you individually have gone about doing it. But we are not talking about our individual responses. What I'm saying is that in order for atheism, because the question that I'm getting at is, why aren't atheists more successful at being visible in the media? And so my challenge to you has to do with the question of what it is that atheism has to offer to people who obviously opt for other ideas about what it is that one needs to do in order to find meaning during the lifespan that has been given to us. And
life doesn't have meaning.
Sorry?
Life doesn't have meaning. It doesn't require meaning.
Well,
you see, the question and life has meaning, then you are expecting an answer that
maybe we could save the questions till after.
Yeah, I know, but these are very, very interesting interjections because that your answer is a heroic answer, okay? And if you are capable of being an existential hero and wake up every morning and say to yourself, I am okay about the fact that life doesn't have a meaning, then hooray for you. But what I'm saying is, this will not travel. This will not travel. This will not.
It's traveling very well.
Hmm?
It's traveling very well. There's more and more atheists.
To the extent that there are 18% of people in Canada that define themselves atheists. The recent Pew numbers from the States suggest that 16% of Americans are atheists. However, I guess the optimistic numbers for you is that 25% of 18 to 29-year-olds now identify with no religion, and that's up from 11% in '86. Well, you can say, we are going places. We are moving ahead. We're gathering strength. I certainly would not jump for joy. I do not think that there will always be a certain number, 20-25% of people who are comfortable identifying themselves as being irreligious. But in the end, what I find interesting is that 1960. The name of the author just escaped me. I read recently a book by a very famous American novelist, Faulkner. Yeah, and it was and it was a travelogue, and was written in 1960. And throughout the whole book, there was not one mention of religion. It was unimportant. It was insignificant. It was invisible. We have to remember that until the early 70s, the ideas about us progressing in the direction of increased secularization, moving in the direction of increased scientific understanding of reality, was taken for granted. Obviously, something happened since the early 70s to show us that progressive linear understanding of history is not correct. That we are not moving in the direction of increased secularization. That claims, the religious claims on the public realm have increased, and they have increased precisely because larger and larger numbers of people found a world defined by science and rationalism to be emotionally unsatisfying. Simply emotionally unsatisfying. Well, this is the problem with your answer is that it starts with an I.
Well, how about this for an answer then? That in most countries, most Western industrialized nations, the percentage of religion people has declined in the last 50 years.
Yes, but for that you needed a very well functioning social democratic societies that have been taken care of.
It's still a fact which seems to be counter to your argument.
Sorry?
It's still a fact which seems to
No,
be
yes,
counter to
but
your
yes,
argument.
but what you have to keep in mind is that these are very. We're talking about a period that is absolutely unusual in the annals of human history, and whether we will continue with that, we don't know. What we know is that affluence provides people with existential padding. That when people are affluent, when their health is taken care of, when the fears of having to do with aging are taken care of by a system of public and social services, that existential fears somehow do not come to the fore to the same extent. And so you can say that affluence is the absolute precondition for a more life that is more secular. But whether or not we can take it for granted, especially given the uncertainty that we will be contending with over the next 50 years, given the fundamental remaking of the global picture with China, India coming online, who knows what's going to happen with Russia. We are in for a period of time that is going to be filled with uncertainty, filled with incoherence. To suggest that in times like that, people will find easy to be existential heroes the way you are, I would not bet my money on. So let me just finish my little talk with trying to answer the question of why it is that you feel atheists have such a difficult time getting on television. Well, the obvious answer, and I needed to kind of pad out my talk because the answer is very simple. The reason why there are no more atheists on television is because all the producers and behind the screens are that. That's why the odd thing that's why I was kind of surprised by being presented as on the website as an out-of-closet atheist. It is television, public television is an atheist medium. Most people I know are atheists, and those who are not, have absolutely no need to bring in their very private religious perceptions to the discussion of public issues. Our perceptions of our public world are secular. We do not presume God when we discuss public affairs. We do not thank God when we are grateful for things. The God has no room in our thinking about discussion of public issues. And so the reason why that's what professional atheists do not feel that they are being wanted is because the problem is not atheism, the problem is religion. And in some ways, the atheist producers want to understand the religious mindset more so than the atheist one, because they themselves understand what it means to be an atheist, because they are that.
They don't realize the population doesn't think that way?
What do you mean?
They're
Doesn't-
saying that there's a select group at the top that are atheists, that are producing the programs, but because they're atheists already, they don't care about what goes out to the public.
No, I mean, but obviously the questions that are asked, the issues that are framed, they're not framed religiously. They're framed irreligiously. And they are not framed in a way that says, please tell us more about how wonderful it is to believe in God. This is not the approach taken to discussion of religion.
What if they're interested in keeping their jobs more than they are in provoking controversial...
No, there's nothing to do with keeping jobs. I mean, this is a canard. I mean, this is the notion that the producers do things, to keep their jobs. Is just that doesn't connect with reality.
Is there something to be said
Really?
for the idea of there being a risk, and from the producer's standpoint of putting professional atheists
No.
into the spotlight?
No, absolutely not. The question is, let me give you an example. Yesterday on the news, there was a very heartbreaking story about a father who was pleading with the hospital to let his 11-year-old son die. The son was dying of cancer, and the hospital felt that the son needed another set of treatments that the father felt would not make any difference. And the father was against it, not for any religious reasons. He just didn't believe that another set of procedures will make any difference to his son's life, and wanted for his son to be in as little pain as possible. What would atheists bring to this conversation? I thought to myself when I was watching that item yesterday on the news. Would atheists say, we believe in science, therefore let's subject the kid to another set of treatments? No, they would not. But precisely. But this is a kind of interesting question.
Well, I
Okay?
can tell you, atheists would bring to the table a discussion of that issue unencumbered by superstition.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, the person who would be asked to discuss that would not be someone who is a professional atheist, but an ethicist. Okay, an ethicist can be an atheist. What I'm saying is that atheist as a label, would not be one that would come to the mind of a producer who would be producing a discussion about this.
But a Roman Catholic priest would.
Well, no. There was no religion involved in this particular.
Nonsense. You know darn well
What?
that you would interview religious people on a question like
What?
Exactly.
No. See, but that's not. No, this is precisely a subject about which when thinking about who are the people that might be useful to discuss it. What I'm saying is, you might say a Catholic priest. You're changing the focus. What I'm saying is, the label of atheist would not be useful here.
Isn't it an issue of risk-taking? I mean, it seems to me what goes on a lot of times with newspapers and magazines, or say smaller political parties that are trying to get their voices heard, is that they're always, it always comes back with, well, no one's talking about you, so we won't publish your material. But then in order for you to get your material, in order for people to talk about you, you need to have your material published. So isn't it a case of producers being weak-kneed and not basically taking a risk to put atheists on the air because they're worried about their ratings, and they'd rather give people the ordinary stuff that they always want to hear. This is a Roman Catholics, we'll give them a Roman Catholic, priest.
I don't know any purists who demand more Roman Catholic priests.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
Nobody writes to us saying, why don't we have more Roman Catholic priests?
The audience is.
But nobody's asking for more atheists either.
Yeah, but you have, BBM and organizations like that that do ratings for
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at demographics and looking at the marketing aspect of it,
Mhm.
and looking at the psychographic, the information of your particular audience. And so are you concerned more about
You
basically
guys,
pandering
you
to
guys,
their
you guys
interests?
are really under absolutely false perception. I mean,
Excuse me, this would be one guy.
Yeah.
Please don't consider us all to
no,
be the same.
but I hear, a number of voices. I mean, I'm open to other voices, but the voices I'm hearing are voices of people who feel embattled and somehow marginalized.
For good reason, sir.
Well, so either you share those perceptions or you don't.
Yeah, so don't necessarily.
I actually think it's not just are you for us or against us. It's not like George Bush's
Yeah.
logic. It's more about shades of grey. And I think that's what I'd like to hear about is,
You only get
it's not
shades
just
of
about a
grey.
black or white question. I think the more interesting questions are to what degree shades of grey, I think, are more interesting questions. So I don't think it helps
You
to
don't
say
steal
I
shades
do
of
this
grey
or that, and to try to tar this person's contribution.
No,
With the reductive
no, but there are all kinds of misperceptions about what's happening behind the cameras. There are all kinds of misperceptions, but nefarious ways of who gets on, who doesn't get on, the politics behind it, and the price people would pay for putting somebody on. There are all kinds of ideas people have about what's happening behind the cameras. That very rarely actually connect with the reality as it actually is.
Perhaps I could just suggest that I and others will allow you to finish what you have to say instead of continuing to interrupt you. And then you can take questions and we can
Sure.
line up. How
Sure.
would that be?
And also, could I please ask everybody when you are asking questions, even if it is about, that you feel that the producers might not be taking risks or things like that, to frame it as actual questions rather than statements that may come across as accusations or attacks? Just out of
But we'll keep them to the end. So no more questions. We'll keep it to
No,
the end.
I'm not fragile. I'm open to
Just so that
attacks.
we
I'm
can,
open
we
to
can
attacks.
finish with your talk and
Yes.
allow you to say what you
No,
want to say.
the way I want to end it is with a reference to a very important essay by Max Weber from 1919. It's called Science as a Vocation, and in which it's a famous essay about disenchantment. He says the fate of our times is characterized by rationalization and intellectualization, and above all by the disenchantment of the world. And it is that which I think goes to the heart of the matter. That those that have a rationalist, humanist, atheist bent must ask themselves the question: to what extent the ideas might bring about a deepening of disenchantment? It is precisely that disenchantment that I think is at the heart of why religious imagination persists, and why people long for it, and why people protect it, and why people defend it against attacks.
And also, we're going to keep it to one question a person. And if you have another question, you can come back after everybody else has had their chance to do the question. Okay? So, yeah, that should be it.
So, I thank you for your contribution. One of the things that struck me as interesting about the way that you presented what you had to say was that the word atheism is somehow like not awfully useful, partly because it talks about what the person is not rather than what they are. And my sense is that atheism and the fact that it's about what we're not is really what your talk has been about. Frankly, at one point when you said that atheism doesn't have much to contribute, doesn't have much to offer in terms of solving the disenchantment, the unlovedness, the desperation that a lot of human beings across the world are finding right now, where I differ from you is that I think science has a lot to offer in understanding poverty, in solving poverty, in solving problems of access to clean water, if you will, solving the problems of general piss-offage of a lot of humans across the planet. Right? The reason we've got a lot of problems societally is that there's a very unfair distribution of resources, that people are poor, people are dying when they shouldn't be. There's a lot of injustices that happen across the world. And certainly religious leaders have had a lot to say about that across the thousands and thousands of years. But I think that the difference about what's been happening since science really began 400 years ago or thereabouts, or I don't know where you want to put that line, but I think science has a huge amount to offer. Science often offers reasoning why people would invent religious ideas. Science offers solutions to poverty. So I really must differ, and perhaps this is in the nature of a comment rather than a question, and for that I apologize, but I think that I would agree with many of the things that you said, but I disagree with the notion that atheists, humanists, scientists don't have something to offer. We have a hell of a lot to offer if people would only listen.
Yes, science has many things to offer and can solve particular problems, whether obviously it hasn't shown itself to be capable of solving the problem of poverty because it's not a scientific problem, it's a political problem. But I would say that the issue is not solving particular problems. The problem is total meaning and the extent to which future of our civilization can cure us of the need for total meaning. Because if it can't, then religious imagination will persist.
Thank you. I also enjoyed your talk. It was very thought-provoking, or perhaps even provocative. I was wondering if you would talk about a particular example that you may have been involved in. There was this series of programs on faith last year on the agenda, which I'm sure you're aware of, and I'm kind of surprised you didn't bring it up.
I knew you would.
At one of the early programs, you had a bunch of religious people sitting around the table bragging about how religion was on the increase and Christianity was growing and more people were coming to church. And Steve, of course, was very excited about that and bought right into it. Said, "Oh yes, no, religion is coming back." And a few days later, you said, "Oh, gee, we've had some response to this show, and so we've decided to invite some atheists." Could you tell us about that little episode?
I plead guilty because I contributed a series. My program fell on a Thursday, and it was the Monk Center special, and the question that we asked was a very, very theist question of why did God create? And it's a question that obviously is someone who is of my disposition, who would ask the question of why did God create, because I know that's the one question that those theistically minded have a most difficult time explaining. And yet it was a question they would ask of people who are obviously affirm a religious mindset. There's no point in asking an atheist the question of why did God create. We did on the last show of that series on a Friday. We had a number of people, Robert Bachman among them, to discuss ways in which our secular life provides substitutes for religious experience. So we did have representatives of the atheist wing of our culture. However, let's understand that the purpose of that series was not to have a battle going on between atheists and theists, but the problem was to try to understand the nature of the need, the nature of what faith is, because despite the fact that there are many people, more people than not, who profess some kind of belief, our public world of ideas is atheist, not theist. Let's understand. In the same way as more people are in favor of death penalty, those who their representatives in the parliament are against it. The same thing applies to religion. Public media are not religious. Public media are irreligious, areligious, anti-religious. But it still does not mean that the problem of religion does not engage us, because obviously it does, it must. But not all subjects that pertain to religion are subjects that require a debate between those who profess religion and atheists.
Do you mind if I just follow up? Part of my question was, were you at all troubled by the fact that on that earlier show, they were stating factually incorrect things?
We can't deal with the problem of facts, because I don't have them. I don't have the transcript. And I don't know which facts you're referring to. But I must tell you, if you want to know the truth about television is not about facts. Television is never about facts.
So I can see now why.
Television is in the conversation debate. There's never room for a going back and forth about what the facts are and how you're going to prove whether this fact that you use is correct or not. Television is not about facts. You want the facts, you go elsewhere. You go to print, because print can be verified, print can be corrected. Television is not about facts.
I'd just like to maybe quote Albert Ellis, who told us that religion was a childish dependency on the supernatural. But you mentioned before that science wasn't enough. And I just wonder if you could maybe explain to me what would be better than the scientific method for solving our problems.
I'm not about, this is not about solving problems. This is about how to think about who we are. This is not about solving problems. I don't have any solutions to offer, or better solutions to offer. What I'm saying is that atheists do themselves harm by thinking that 400 years of scientific understanding trumps the past, the entire human past.
See my cell phone? It clearly does.
Why?
This wasn't invented 400 years ago. No matter how many thousands and thousands of years people had wanted to communicate, across thousands of miles without being next to the person they were talking to. Yeah, modern science does trump the past.
No, I think you're really selling yourself short. I mean, I don't think you don't see yourself and us as being sufficiently deeply embedded. You do not appreciate the pre-rational significance of human nature.
I'm sorry, how do you know that I don't appreciate that?
Well, because you're pointing to your cell phone and say this trumps everything else.
I just said that was one example of how 400 years of science does actually trump 4,000 years of history prior to that. I mean, all you need in an argument to show that.
No, but the archetypal imagery, the archetypal notions, the belief systems, the extent to which human beings have been shaped thoroughly through a long period of not having a scientific understanding of reality. To say that this somehow is no longer relevant is really to sell our evolutionary history short. And all those who live by Darwin ought to understand that evolutionary history has been very, very long and absolutely matters and absolutely pertains and affects us. And we are very much living in its shadow. We cannot loosen ourselves. We cannot free ourselves from it. We are not independent. We are not independent rational agents. And it's precisely, the attempt to argue that kind of an outlook, I think, explains why it is that only 18% of Canadians profess atheism. That's what I'm saying.
French.
Sorry?
50% of French and 55% of Swedes.
French. Well,
Close to 70% of Dutch.
Can we move on to
Yeah,
Yes,
the next
sure.
question.
Yeah, I was going to say that I disagree with the conflation here of science as being position against religion as if there was no philosophic argument here, and that, you know, that this is, and again, the belief in God is really just a metaphysical question, and it's really epistemology that really settles the question whether or not there is a God. And so it's the use of reason and use of rational evidence and arguing from the evidence to see exactly what is true and what is false.